Good evening, everyone. This is certainly a first time for me. Hopefully, I can't see you, but hopefully you can see us. I'm joined this evening. My name's Alan Richards. I'm the executive head here at Cleves School, and I'm joined by two colleagues this evening. Would you like to introduce yourselves? Thank you.
I'm Sarah Gans. I'm head of school Key Stage 3.
And I'm Sam Matthews. I'm the assistant head of school for Key Stage 3.
Thank you very much. So the purpose of this evening really is a question and answer session, really. Now September and October are normally two of my favourite months of the year because it's fresh. It's a new academic year starting, and I also very much enjoy the work we do with primary schools, particularly the Year 6 families as well. I really enjoy one of the highlights of my year is when I and some of my colleagues get to come out to the primary schools, and we usually do a presentation and questions and answers at those sessions, and then we have our open evening here at Cleves School, and then we also have our open mornings as well, which particularly involve question and answers. And I think my favourites of that suite of events really are the visits to primary schools, because again it's mainly driven by questions and answering, but also the open mornings as well. They're slightly less formal in many ways, and we quite enjoy that environment. So really this evening is very much about you and parents and students as well, Year 6 students, asking as many questions as you can. My colleague here, Mr. Matthews, he's the IT whiz, and he's the one who's going to be fielding your questions, and all of us will have goes at answering the questions that you put through to us as well. Some questions, thank you very much indeed, some questions have already come through, and we will answer those as we go through the evening. I think we're looking at around about an hour, no more than an hour really, so finishing by 7 o'clock. And hopefully by the end of the hour you'll feel as if we have answered your questions as fully as we possibly can. By all means, of course, in the next week or so as we head towards half term, which I know is the crucial cut-off point, by all means email further questions through. We will certainly get back to all parents who email follow-on questions. We will certainly do that. I think one of the questions that I know will come up, and I think has already been raised, is that of size, and I'm basing that on my visits over the last few years to primary schools, and also, as I said, fielding when parents come for the open morning visits as well in the autumn. And size often comes up. Inevitably, of course, it's a big shift and a big change from moving from invariably a smaller primary school coming to what would appear to be a large secondary school. We certainly are a large secondary school. I would say probably similar size to Bourneside, and maybe slightly larger than Balcarres, but bigger than most schools, certainly in the area. I would say it's maybe the best way of describing it is a bit like Doctor Who's TARDIS, except the reverse of that. So from the outside we possibly look quite big, but on the inside we really are quite small in terms of what we do and how we use the economies of scale to make us be small internally as well. And there's lots of positives around our size. I mean, the first one I would certainly talk about very briefly is our class size. So again, in terms of numbers of students across the school, it may appear quite large, but in terms of our average class sizes in Key Stage 3, 4 and 5, they are remarkably small, being 23 in Key Stage 3, 22 in Key Stage 4, and then around about 12 or 13 in Key Stage 5. So very small, and we can do that, of course, because we can afford to have more members of staff, more teachers, and that drives down the class sizes. And I think that's a real big feature. I think the second thing I'd say about size is our curriculum design and the depth and richness of our curriculum. And again, we can do that. We can offer wonderful subjects like the performing arts, computer science, technology, languages is a major strength and success of the school as well. And all of that we can do again because of our size and how really the sixth form links to the main school as well. So our curriculum is a very strong part of the school and something we're very proud of. Allied to that, of course, is our extracurricular offer, which again is vast and huge and something we really believe in because we know it really helps to develop young people as they move through the school. I think the third thing I'd say, and the final thing I'd say, is about the quality of staff that we can retain but also recruit. And the evidence after evidence after evidence, every year we recruit people into the school, often who are already doing similar jobs in other schools, but they particularly want to come to Cleve because they know there's much more going on here, there's more opportunities for their own career development, and lots of exciting opportunities for themselves. But also, if you're a passionate, say, science teacher or maths teacher, you will love teaching science or maths to year 7, year 8, year 9, but also right the way through to pre-university in the sixth form as well. And of course, many schools don't have that sixth form thing that we have here. And our sixth form really is a very exciting part of the school and a large part of the school as well. So size, I would very much say, is a major strength of the school. And the final thing linked to that, of course, is what we've also done is we've essentially split Cleve Academy into two smaller schools. So Cleve Academy now consists of Key Stage 3 school, headed up by the wonderful Mrs. Gand, and also Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 school, that is headed up by the fantastic Mr. Slatter as well. And both of those people are head teachers in their own rights, heads of school in their own rights, and they have senior leadership teams underneath them as well, and I sort of sit above both of them as well. So in many ways we've got the best of both worlds. We're splitting the school up, dividing the school down, but we've also got the economies of scale as well, which adds the richness and the opportunity and the breadth that we really celebrate and enjoy here as well. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Mrs. Gann, because I believe the next question is about our pastoral care and support. Thank you, Mrs.
Yeah, and
Gann.
I think it links, thank you, Mr. Richards. I think it links very much to what you were saying in terms of splitting the school down into those smaller schools. And like you said, obviously we've got the Key Stage 3 school, but even more so than that then, within that school, well, it goes across both schools, but we have the five colleges, which means that actually we break the school into those 5 smaller, very bespoke communities. We made the decision this year to take Year 7 out of that college system slightly, so we have that Year 7 support team who sit above the colleges. So when Year 7 came in this year, and we're going to keep this into next year, Year 7 have their own year leader, Year 7 have their own year support leader. They also have another member of staff, the assistant head of year, who supports with that year group and looks at the academic progress within that year group. So in terms of support for Year 7 when they come in, they have their year team, they have their tutor, but they're also affiliated within a college. So when they go into Year 8, they'll very much become a part of that college with the college leader, the college support leader, but they are also able to get involved in so many things in Year 7 with the college opportunities. In terms of support, I think because of the size of our school, we have a support system and network unlike any other school. So many external visitors come into the school from various agencies, and they cannot believe the support that we offer our students. And that starts with the tutor. Like I say, we have superb proactive tutors, but we also have that very, very designated staff. So the college support leader, the year support leader, is a non-teaching member of staff whose sole focus is to look after the students within that year group. And then we have that teaching member of staff, that year leader or the college leader, who runs that college and drives that college forward. But like Mr. Richards just alluded to as well, sitting above that, we have very clear leadership teams, and that Key Stage 3 leadership team, we meet as a team every week. And there's lots going on there with Mr. Matthews as the assistant head. We've also got a deputy head of Key Stage 3, and then myself sitting above that. So in terms of the support network for your children when they start at Cleve, it's huge. Thank you.
I would add to that. I think despite the challenges that we've all been facing, of course, since September, in terms of COVID, I think one of the biggest changes I've seen at my time at Cleve, and I joined Cleve in 2015, has been that restructure. I think it's made a huge difference in lots of ways. And again, it's about breaking down what would appear to be a large school into smaller schools. And I think the leadership of Mrs. Gand and Mr. Slatter and their teams beneath them are having a major difference. The other bit linked to that, and I'm sure Mrs. Gand will reference this a little bit later on as well, is what we've done around Year 7 in how we've turned Year 7 into a bespoke year group. So going back previous years, Year 7 would step into the college system, and the college system is a very strong part of the school. But now Year 6 is moving into the school, would step into a standalone Year 7 with their own very specialist team, and they really are a fantastic team. And we've received so many wonderful comments from Year 7 parents about how good they are. They really are a wonderful team, and I'd be delighted myself to have my children arriving in Year 7 being overseen by them as well. But I'm sure Mrs. Gann will talk more about that later. I mustn't steal your lines, Mrs. Gann. My apologies.
So we've had a question, and I have removed it. I want to be really transparent about that, just in terms of we might have some young people watching, but please do keep your questions coming in. We will see them all, and if you're not able to comment on YouTube, then please do pop me an email directly. We'll be checking that as we go through this evening. But the question, broadly speaking, was about behaviour at Cleve and potential for bullying at Cleve, and I think that's well worth addressing. So, with regard to bullying at Cleve, we know lots of students for all schools worry about bullying when they're coming into secondary school, and they might have had unfortunate experiences in primary school, and we know that that's really important to get right. So there's two things that we have to get right as a school and that we focus really hard on. So the first one is that we need to do everything that we can to create a culture where bullying doesn't happen, or where students feel vulnerable, that they're able to tell us about it so that we can act on it. So we work really hard in a variety of ways to create a culture where bullying should not be tolerated. So we have student anti-bullying ambassadors who work with the Diana Project, which is a national project delivering anti-bullying training to schools and students. We've actually been a hub school providing that training to lots of other schools within the area. We do an anti-bullying enrichment day, so doing some of that preventative work with students, understanding why people choose to bully and how we can find ways of making sure they don't get to that point. We get the Be Nice bus in, which is a great resource that looks at cyberbullying and trying to help students come up with better strategies for dealing with conflict online. And alongside all of the extra support that Mrs. Gans has just been speaking about with the pastoral system, providing that early help for students. We've got a dedicated and passionate leader of all of our anti-bullying work, so Mr. Dalval, who's also one of our college leaders. He really drives that and takes a lead there, working closely with Mrs. Gand and Mr. Slatter. And he goes into primary schools to talk to them about the work that we do and to try and help students realise that we're here for them and we won't tolerate a culture where bullying is accepted. Alongside all of that, then, we do have to have a zero tolerance to any bullying incidents that arise. We are a large school and things, unfortunately, do sometimes happen. So we give students lots of different safe ways to report any concerns. So they've got that college team and their tutor who will be their first port of call. But alongside that, we give students a means to report to us directly online if they've got any concerns. So if they're worried about coming to see us face to face, that's a way that they can do that. And we'd always encourage parents to contact us at the earliest opportunity if their child comes home and they've got any concerns, so that we can start to move quickly, so that we can deal with things as soon as they arise. With all of that, then, we have to deal with bullying really firmly. We have to make sure that appropriate action is taken. And there's a couple of things that go alongside that. It's not just a case of punishing a student who's done something wrong. What we need to do is make sure that lessons are learned and that victims of bullying are supported going forward, and recognising that something can form part of a larger difficulty. So there's that ongoing support using external agencies if we need to. But we also need to do something with the student who has made a mistake or done something wrong or decided to treat another student poorly. So young people don't bully without a reason. We need to unpick what those reasons are, work with that student and their family to try and solve some of those difficulties, so that ultimately that student's behaviour is amended on a long-term basis and not just dealing with something reactively. All of that, those two things then really come together. So we've got that preventative work in the culture that we strive to create, and that's further supported by things like our tutor time programme and our Cleve character programme, and then the ongoing pastoral support that Mrs. Gann's spoken about.
And I was going to say, yeah, it was a superb answer, but our culture has changed. It 100% has changed. Students do not tolerate it. When things happen, things might happen throughout the day. It is students who will come and report it, whether it's the student themselves or whether it's onlookers. They will report it because students at Cleve won't tolerate it, and they know my very, very clear and strong message is that it won't happen. And if anything like that does happen, it's dealt with swiftly and really seriously as well, because it isn't something we tolerate. I've mentioned before, I'm a parent, and I look at these things, how I would view it if it was my daughter, and it just isn't accepted, and the students feel the same way, so it is dealt with very strongly.
Is it worth also maybe adding that when we had an Ofsted visit, of course, going back to last autumn, a year's gone very quickly, and again, when they visited, they were full of praise for the students' behaviour here as well. They could really sense that culture, and without a shadow of a doubt, it's changed considerably over the last few years. I think it's of a very high standard now, and certainly when Ofsted come back again, we'll be pushing for outstanding because our students certainly deserve that. I feel passionate as well about our role in the community as well. So it's very much about student behaviour within our school, but I feel very strongly about how our students behave outside in the local community as well, particularly when they're wearing our uniform. And if there are things going on and there's something's gone wrong in terms of behaviour, there's some name calling or bullying, we will deal with that very thoroughly as well, because we will not accept that. And indeed, I take great pride. Mrs. Gand often joins me. Every morning we'll be out on the buses on the arrival, and we take that very seriously because we know that means an awful lot to parents, to students as well, that we're visible both at the start of the day and also at the end of the day as well. So it's about that all-round feeling that I think parents are really buying into about Cleeve School now.
We had another question come through about extracurricular clubs, particularly sort of music clubs. I wrote a few down before I came in because I think that the club offer that we have, the extracurricular offer that we have, is just incredible, and it builds every year. I think we've got a bit of an inner competition going on with the heads of department. Who can add more clubs each year? We like to put on an activities fair, an enrichment fair at the very beginning when Year 7 starts. As part of their induction, they get to go and have a look at all the clubs. Every department offers a club, and it's like a university fair. They go and choose which club they'd like to do or which clubs they'd like to do. So I've noted down some of them. There are many more. In terms of science, and these are becoming more and more popular, we have STEM clubs. So we have a Grow Club where students learn about growing plants and they make creations with these plants. Marine Club, Mars Rover Club, Space Probe Club. So in terms of science, the clubs alone are incredibly impressive, and I know that they've, particularly for Year 7 and 8, they've had to put on 2 clubs running at the same time just because of the number of students who are interested in that. Within computer science, we have Coding Club and Ethical Hacking Club, which I struggle with slightly, but I know many of the students really enjoy that. We have the sports clubs. Again, the list grows with the sports clubs every year. I'll just name some of them: football, rugby, badminton, rounders, athletics, basketball, cricket, tennis. The list goes on, so there's lots going on within the PE department. Music club, I know we have jazz band, we have orchestra, we have string, we have girls and boys choir. Again, there are a vast array of clubs within the music department. Languages, I'd like to talk a little bit about languages later in terms of what our offer is for Year 7 students, but in terms of clubs, we have Mandarin, German, Italian. We have a fair trade club run by the ethics department, homework club. We have a Warhammer club, dance club, book club, drama club. There really is a club for anyone's interest, and I think that's just part of our offer to the students, that when you come to Cleeve, it is about developing your whole character, and we're really interested in the various characters that come and start with us at Cleeve, and we really want to develop their interests both within the classroom and also outside of the classroom as well.
Here's a good question, Mrs. Genn, because I'm often asked this, usually by...
I do like it when Mr. Richards asks me questions.
Well, often it's asked every year, really, do we offer, and it's brilliant that we do clubs like rugby, of course, and football, which we should be doing, and our teams are very strong at in those areas, but do girls have opportunities in rugby and football as well?
Yes, I believe that's been sorted now. Yes, I believe there's a girls' football club. I'm not sure about rugby club, but if we had any girls in Year 6 watching now and they are passionate about that, please let us know, and I will find out the answer for you.
We have had Gloucester Rugby Club come in and deliver a girls' rugby club as well.
There we go,
so
we should have asked Mr. Matthews.
That will probably come back in. DV as well, didn't mention DV.
Gosh, can you mention DV?
I could talk about DV. Yep, so we offer the Duke of Edinburgh's award up to gold. The student is the option is available for all students in Year 9 to take part in DV Bronze. We do our DV work with an external agency who come in. They do a brilliant job with the students, so they come in, they provide all the expedition training, they help run the expeditions. So students have got the option to go out and do a hill walking expedition, or some of our students for their silver award have gone off and done canoeing and kayaking expeditions as well. So they've had all the safety training and got their skills up, and then they've gone off to complete their award. But the offer is there right up to the gold award as well, and so a very prestigious achievement for some of our young people.
It's perhaps worth noting at that point actually that when Year 7 start with us, we always like to do a residential, and that's been slightly put on hold this year with COVID, but we are going to do one. It's just a case of when. But in terms of your year group now, Year 6, we've already booked your residential. So Newquay in the summer of 2022 is booked. So in terms of what we'd be able to do there and the extracurricular offer there, and that we'd go away with the year group and the college team for at least 2 days, we'd maybe go for 3 days that year. That's been superb every single year that we've done that. So I'm really looking forward to that already.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. So lovely question just comes through about performing arts. That's a great question. Something we are very proud of here as well. Essentially, that comprises music, dance, and drama here at Cleeve School, and that is a strong part of the school. I mean, we know lots of schools are placing lots of emphasis on subjects like mathematics and English, of course, and the sciences, and that's brilliant. But what we feel very strongly about, and this sort of links to the extracurricular offer and clubs and things, is that the performing arts have a strong role to play in schools as well. Music is particularly strong here, very strong indeed, and the numbers taking music into Key Stage 4 and then into Key Stage 5, I think they've almost tripled over the last few years, thanks to our new head of music, who's absolutely amazing. In terms of drama, again, that's a strength, and it can grow and grow even more. Dance is something, again, that we feel very passionate about, and I think that's an area that could develop a little bit more within the school as well. But certainly performing arts is a lovely part of the school. Symbolic of that is that some of you will have visited the school before, and some of you will know our main central hall here, which is a lovely large space. But what we're doing now is investing in a large cantilevered seating arrangement there, which is going to be very exciting indeed. So that will increase the seating capacity in the main hall and also give it a really nice theatre feeling as well. We feel very strongly that that's going to be very useful to us as a school, but also for the community as well. So very excited about that, and that should be in place from January 2021.
I've had a question, if you don't mind me taking.
Yes, go on then.
A couple of questions came through previously, a couple of days ago, around setting, and lots of people often ask me about setting. How do we set at Cleeve School? If you'd watched the previous thing that we did, that we put out our open evening, our virtual open evening, I talked about the fact that this year, Year 7 have been simply put in their tutor groups, and they're being taught in their tutor groups, which is working really well in terms of establishing friendships and feeling secure and confident with their peers. We always feel quite passionately that when students start with us in Year 7, we keep them in mixed ability sets throughout Year 7. I think whilst we get the Key Stage 2 data, although we obviously didn't this year, ordinarily we'd have that incredibly useful Key Stage 2 data. We don't want children to be treated as statistics. We don't want to just base our knowledge of them on this Key Stage 2 data. So actually what we want to do is to teach your child for a full year, really get to know your child, and then in Year 8 some setting filters in at that point when we really know strengths and weaknesses. But actually I think for us what's really powerful within a classroom is our new, and again you might have heard me talking about this, but our knowledge and mastery curriculum, the notion of enabling all students to acquire the relevant knowledge and that knowledge that's really going to drive their learning forward, and then for them to be able to master that knowledge. So in terms of those classrooms, it's about high challenge and high support in all lessons. So I think that's what we're really focused on in Year 7, and then as we go through the school, some setting occurs in different subject areas.
I'm going to fold in a couple of questions together that we've had previously. Lots of people, when we do our traditional open evenings, do come and look at the catchment area map. So one of the questions that we've had is about, what if my child, or what if we live outside of catchment? Is it still worth us applying for Cleeve and putting it as a choice? And the second one, which I think is perhaps a little bit allied to that question, but what support is in place for students who don't have any close friends or classmates from their previous school? So perhaps they've come from a primary that's a little bit outside of catchment, or other students in their primary school are going to other schools, and you've decided that you want your child to come to us. So I think on the catchment area one, and Mrs. Gandwall, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's well worth still applying for Cleeve. It links to what Mr. Richards was saying at the start about us being a large school. We can have a very large Year 7 intake, and I think we'd want to open that opportunity up to as many students as possible, wouldn't we? Yeah. So I think by all means it's worth putting Cleeve down, and we'll do everything we can to take students and to help them reach us. Alongside that, the question about, what if my child doesn't know someone from primary school coming into Cleeve? We do always have quite a number of students who find themselves in that position. to support that, we have quite a developed transition programme. Mrs. Gans mentioned a little bit of that already, but where the students are coming in at the end of the summer and they spend a good few days with their tutor group, getting to know them, getting to know their tutor, doing some bonding work together so that they find out a little bit about each other and form some of those close friendships before the summer holidays. We then have another induction day for Year 7s in September, where it's just the Year 7s and the new Year 12s on site. And it just gives them that little bit of extra time to start bonding, forming friendships and getting to know people. And we find that students settle in really well, regardless of whether or not they've come from a school that sends us lots and lots of children, or whether they're completely new.
Yeah, and I think what we try and do with that as well is make sure when we're putting classes together, it's important that we're looking at, you know, having a real mix of students and making sure we've got different ability levels, different a mix of males and females, etc., etc. But we also look at that mix of schools, and if there's only 2 children coming from one school, we'll try and make sure they're in the same class. But otherwise, we try and spread students out a little bit, so there'll be familiar faces. But I think it's about just having that fresh start and creating their first impressions, getting to know each other. And we really encourage people to get involved in those extracurricular clubs, as I was saying, to make new friends, as well as keeping those old friendships, make new friends and really make the most of all opportunities at Cleve.
I think it's fitting. I mean, both Mr. Matthews and Mrs. Gann spoke about the transition programme there. It is totally transformed since the last 4 or 5 years. I remember when I first arrived at Cleve that all of Year 7 would arrive on day 1 in September with everybody else in the school, which is absolutely crazy, of course, and didn't help anybody. So very much now the whole thing is really being thought through in a far better way, thinking very much about the young person arriving at Cleve School. And it is infinitely better, and we work much more closely as well with primary schools as well, which is so very important. And we're so lucky to have so many wonderful primary schools around us as well. Just on that note, just very proud. It's comes back to me, of course, that back in the summer when we had Year 6s, of course, we're in this dreadful situation where they were almost cast adrift, of course, having not done their SATs at the end of last year. And then sort of in between primary school and secondary school, my heart really went out to them. But I'm really proud that I don't think there were many schools that did this, but we very much reached out and actually had Year 6s come on site here as well in that last week of the summer term. And I think that went down really well with parents as well. So we're really pleased to have done that. Who's got the next question? The question about food.
Food.
Who's going to talk about food?
I'm happy to talk about dining in canteens. I usually visit all primary schools as about this time actually, and I go and speak to the students, and I think I get the food question rather a lot. So we've put a significant investment into our dining facilities firstly. So we now have a Key Stage 3 canteen, which has just transformed the school really. So we have a Key Stage 3 canteen, we have a Key Stage 4 canteen, and we have a Key Stage 5 canteen. So what's wonderful at lunchtimes is that we just have Year 7, 8 and 9 students in that canteen. In terms of the food on offer, we get student voice about our food, we listen to parent voice, staff voice, and Mr. Richards has frequent meetings himself with our catering company to make sure the food on offer is absolutely something that we're really, really proud of. What's great for you as a parent, for the parents who are watching, is that you can see exactly what your child has purchased and eaten throughout the day, which I quite like. So when your child purchases their food, you can see that on their account. So you can see what they're spending their money on and make sure they're choosing nice and healthy meals that you would want them to choose. So the food offer's great. We have, not currently, but we will have again our breakfast club in the morning, so that students can come in any time from 8 o'clock till 8:30 and buy some breakfast. They can get free porridge or they can purchase other items. Then during their break time, some students like to buy their lunch during break time, so there's different things on offer at break time: hot food, cold food, and then at lunchtime as well there's a food offer, vegetarian options, hot options, cold options, salad options. So there's lots and lots of variety there.
Is it worth mentioning as well, I mean, again, this dreadful COVID situation, some of the changes we brought into play since September, believe it or not, we're likely to keep going, and one of them is linked to break time and certainly lunchtime, which is a split lunchtime, which has made a huge difference. Again, we talk about the size of the school, and a relatively short lunchtime in around about 35 minutes, 40 minutes, which of course isn't really long enough. So what we're doing at the moment is splitting lunch. So we have, again, thinking about the 2 schools, Key Stage 3 school and the Key Stage 4 and 5 school. and now they very much do have their separate lunches, and it is working brilliantly. So that is something very much is on our mind about taking that forward beyond the COVID challenges, and I can't believe that we will go back to what we had before, which is one lunchtime, and that'll be running through beyond next September as well. So that'll be a good positive thing from this current crisis that we can take forward as well.
Mr. Matthews?
Shall I take this one that's popped in?
Oh,
So we've had a question come in on the live chat. Please do keep popping things in there. We are reading everything that comes in there and on email. But great to hear about the non-setting in Year 7. How do you then support students who are not at the top or bottom so that they are not left adrift? And I feel really strongly about this, actually, that every child within Cleve, and I know Mr. Richards and Mrs. Gann feel exactly the same, but every child at Cleve needs to be enabled to reach their full potential, whoever they are, whether they are someone who finds academic subjects really difficult or someone who is going to go on to get, a whole suite of grade 9s at GCSE and go off to Oxbridge. What we do as a school is every student has their individual targets that we're given as staff. Now we set really high academic standards for our students, so we pitch those targets at a very high level, and they're given to teachers, and all teachers are held accountable for all of their students. So it's not like perhaps how sometimes it works in primary school where we're trying to reach the expected standard and let's get everyone over that line. We're trying to get every student as high as they can possibly be, and we're all accountable as a leadership team, and all of our teachers take that personal responsibility seriously, that every student in their class has got to be able to get to that level. One of the advantages of this mixed setting is that it's been shown to have a real positive impact on helping all students make gains. So one stronger student supporting a weaker student has benefits for both, and a couple of students who are perhaps on a par working on a peer coaching model can really help drive students up. So we don't just look at, okay, is that student at a certain grade and take that and accept that. We look at what they've been able to achieve previously at primary school, what they've been able to achieve previously at Cleve, and go, is that student achieving the very best that they can achieve for them? And if they're not, regardless of whether they are kind of at the very highest grades or whether they're slightly further down, questions will be asked and action will be taken to drive them forward and make sure that we get them as far as we possibly can.
It's something I feel very, very strongly about is the aspiration. I think if any school is going to really transform itself, but also transform the lives of young people, yes, it's very much about the curriculum design, it's about the delivery in the classroom, it's about the extracurricular opportunities. All of those things really matter. What matters, I think, more than anything, though, is that real sense of ambition. An ambition for ourselves, but also an ambition for every single child to really, really go for it. And if you get that culture in place, if you enable every student to really, really, really believe in themselves and what they can achieve, then anything is possible. And I think more than anything, that's something that I've strived to do over the last few years, and I think we are doing, and we'll keep doing as well. As an example, what we tend to do, we haven't done it this year for various reasons, but we'll take our wonderful new Year 7s when they arrive in September over to our Sixth Form Centre of Excellence. And I love that moment, because very much I say about looking around you, look around you, there is a place for every single one of you in 5 years' time. And this is a really captivating, lovely moment. I think you can hear a pin drop. And it's very much about laying those stones out before them and connecting those dots about their own learning, their own journey. And again, it's about opening their eyes to the opportunities that really, really do exist here. And you can really sense that buzz in the arena when we talk about that. And that idea came from a fellow head teacher, friend of mine who works in the school up in Bradford, and he goes a step further. So I take them into the sixth form and say, look around you, there's a place for you in 5 years' time. My head teacher colleague in Bradford, he takes them, he puts Year 7s, the new Year 7s on a bus, and he takes them all over to Leeds University. And he says, look around you, there is a place for every single one of you in 7 years' time. And it's one of those wonderful moments which really, I think, encapsulates what I really believe about education, about schooling. It's not to say that every child needs to go on to university. It's not about that. So there's all sorts of wonderful opportunities beyond sixth form, beyond the school, regardless of whether that's university or not. But if you can really, really make young people believe in themselves, believe in what they can contribute to the world around us, and help to make the world a better place, then we really are winning. And again, I feel strongly we really are starting to do that here at Cleve.
I think in terms of that as well, in terms of lesson times, about those students not being left adrift, within lessons we're constantly sort of gauging engagement, we're gauging progress throughout the lesson, and that's with every single student. And you know, I'm going into lessons every single day, Mr. Matthews is, Mr. Richards is, the senior leadership team are going into lessons every day, and we're looking for that level of engagement and progress from every student. But also students are encouraged to reflect on their own achievements and progress. So when they do assessments within the classroom, the teacher marks it, the teacher tells them, "This, you've done this really well, but actually this is an area that you can improve on," because no piece of work is finished work, is it? There's always improvements to be made. And the student then, what the student has to do is improve that work, a section of the work. They take the target the teacher gives them and they improve it. So it's always about getting every student to constantly want to progress further. So no one's left adrift at all, and that's whether the top end, bottom end, or the middle. We always want students to feel proud of the work that they're doing and proud of their progress. And then when it comes to teachers formally assessing students, so 3 times a year, and that was the outcomes of that go to you as parents. Students then look at those achievements across their subject areas, and we ask them to set themselves targets for the next half term. How can I do even better? So hopefully that answers your question.
It's a good question there about family members, spending time with them. Does that link nicely to the college system?
Yes, so in terms of family members, so if you already had a sibling here at Cleve and then you started here at Cleve, you would be placed in the same college. And I think part of our narrative there was this notion of that relationship that forms with that college team is incredibly powerful. And I think when you as a parent place your trust in a team and you get to know a team of people who are working with your child, who really know your child, because that is so important to us at Cleve. When your other child then starts at Cleve, it enables you to have that really trusting relationship already built with that team of people. So in terms of spending time with them, currently that doesn't happen particularly easily because of our zones and our year group zones and our bubbles, but ordinarily, yes, absolutely. And many siblings walk to school together. It's wonderful. They wait for each other outside the school gates, and usually at break time and lunchtime, once they've kind of been to their canteens, they'd be able to spend time with those siblings. If we were to move to a split lunch, obviously then it would be the Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 and 5 separate lunches, but they'd certainly see them throughout the school day, passing when they go to lessons. Like Mr. Richard says, although on the surface it feels like a large school, when you're inside the school, you bump into people all the time. It really does feel quite small on the inside, particularly in terms of our layout. So whenever I show people round, we talk about the fact that all of science is together, all of English is together, so you just have to know those key areas. There's numbers on each of the doors. It does just feel very small when you're here.
I think a frequent comment that comes back, particularly in the open mornings as we used to do in the past and we will do in the future, is about gosh, where are the students? I think they think we've hidden them somewhere or something. But there is a sense of space as you wander around the school and you go in and out of lessons. You really do feel at ease. And I know it's so hard to talk about that now if you haven't visited the school because you can't see it. But I can assure you that is predominantly the feedback and comments we get back from parents and also from students as well, which I think they find really reassuring.
And like Mr. Matthews said, those induction days that we put on, again, when I first started in my role, there was one induction day, that was it, and then the students started in September. And something I made sure we did was bring together those 3 consecutive induction days in the summer term. By the end of that 3rd day, students know where they're going, they know where their tutor room is, they know their tutor really well because they've spent a good amount of time with them, and they leave just incredibly excited about starting in September. And then that 4th day, and I do call it the 4th induction day because it is just Year 7 and Year 12 in completely different areas of the school on that first day in September, getting to know their timetable, getting to know their way around the school. So the school just becomes so familiar to the students. Mr. Matthews?
Okay, so we've had another question. So if a student does not look to sixth form, what support is given for work or apprentice options? I think that perhaps feeds into careers and next steps in general. So to take that question specifically, we want every student to leave us at the end of year 11 with a solid destination. Education of some sort now is compulsory up until age of 18, or some sort of educational training. And the Key Stage 4 school work incredibly hard to make sure that every student has got a pathway that is right for them, and that they're supported to achieve whatever grades or experience they need to reach that. That work starts really early, so our careers education programme runs right through the school, right from year 7, year 7, 8 and 9 through our life skills programme. Students are encouraged to think about what sorts of things might they want to do in the future, and what are the steps that they're going to have to take to get there. We also pull in other external resources, so we use something called Fast Tomato, which is a lovely snappy name, but it's essentially like a questionnaire system that asks students about their interests, what they consider their strengths and weaknesses, and pulls out a whole variety of different careers and options and things that they might not have considered. Alongside that, then, it gives them some guidance on, okay, well, what are the different training routes that are available to you? Is this something that you would need to go to university to do, or actually is a more traditional route to go on and do an apprenticeship or start a work placement at age 18? We also have our work experience programme that takes place during year 10, and several of our students have gone on to apprenticeships off the back of that. So they've done some work experience, they've built up a good relationship with a potential employer, and an apprenticeship has been offered off the back of that. And all students in year 11 will also take part in a mock interview. So that's not with a school teacher, that's with someone from the external world of business, or one of our local industries. They all send people into school, they do a mock interview with our year 11 students, they get feedback on that interview, and sometimes it enables a relationship to be built that then kind of goes forward from there. We also have a careers advisor in school, so he solely works on careers with us, and what students can have booked via their college team or the year 11 team is an appointment with him, who can look at different options for students post 16. So he might provide guidance. We've had, for example, several students over the last few years pass on to the Army Technical Colleges or to Hartbury College. Other students have gone on to apprenticeships at places like GE or post 16 to GCHQ. So there's a whole range of different routes that we can offer and we can support with.
Great. We've had another question come through about children who don't have siblings, and perhaps they don't have other friendships in their immediate year group, but what about those who have friendships with students higher up the school? So we'd absolutely look at that. I think if there are students who came in, and we have, I'm sure you appreciate, a variety of different circumstances of students who are starting with us, and we quite often look at peer mentoring. So we might look at, for example, a student who was maybe feeling a little bit anxious. They didn't know very many people, if any people at all, but they did know somebody, older in the school. Absolutely, we could look at a bit of mentoring there, where they got an opportunity to look after one another. So it might be that student came and spoke to them during tutor time, or who we arranged to meet up with at break times. We'd absolutely look at that, and we always look at individual needs. There's a huge amount of work that goes on before students transition into our school, and that's something again that's built on each year, but it starts in kind of January time. As soon as we know the students who are coming to us in September, the work starts. Myself and Mr. Richards meet with the primary heads once a term, so we're in close communication with our feeder schools, but much more than that, we speak to every single year 6 teacher. Even if we've got one child coming from one school, we will speak to that year 6 teacher, and we find out in-depth information, anything that we'd need to know to make sure that student had a successful start. We get the academic results from the school, the Key Stage 2 official data, but any other data from the teacher, but also what worries that student, or what are their likes, what are their dislikes, how many friends are they coming up with, do they know anybody? We make sure we know that information so that we are ready, and our year 7 team are absolutely ready to welcome that student. So if there was a student who was coming up who was feeling a little bit nervous but knew somebody in an older year group, we'd absolutely sort something out for them. We do paired reading schemes with older students, where older students come and read with the younger students during tutor time. We have sixth form mentors very often who work with some of the younger students. So those kind of programmes are done fairly frequently, but quite specifically depending on the student's need or what they wanted.
College events as well.
College events,
in
yeah.
terms of working with older students
Yeah.
and getting to know them. So because the colleges are made up of students from all year groups right up to sixth form, when there are events like college dance or college drama,
Yeah.
college music, it's our sixth form students who do a phenomenal job actually taking the lead on that. College leaders are, and they won't mind me saying this, I'm sure, not always the most musical or the most dramatic themselves. So we really rely on the older students to take a lead there, mentoring the younger students and bringing them up and bringing them along, and they form some wonderful friendships. And then you get this wonderful evolution as students, they come in year 7, they perhaps, they sing in the college choir, and by year 13 then they're leading their college in college music, and they're bringing the younger students up themselves as well. So there's lots of opportunities there.
Are they allowed technology in school is a question that's just come in. I think it's a superb question. A few years ago now, we made the decision to ban the use of mobile phones. Now, we absolutely are a technology school, and students are allowed to bring mobile phones into school. They're in their bags, but very often in lessons a teacher might suggest that they're going to do a quiz using their phone. If they have a phone, they might do a piece of research on their phone, but during any kind of social times, phones are not allowed at school, and it's been a really, really positive step. And all the students, not maybe every single student, but most students see what an incredibly positive step that's been. When we first started talking about it, I'm sure phones are a huge thing to students. We didn't know how easy it was going to be to make that change, but it was incredibly easy. We take it incredibly seriously. Students don't use their phones at school, and I think it's really powerful. I think it's really good for students to have that break from technology, to enjoy conversing with their friends, conversing with adults, and enjoying their free time, playing a game of football at lunch, going to the Warhammer Club at lunch, and actually having some time away from that technology.
Does anybody actually know what Warhammer is?
No.
Oh, no.
I've never known.
I'm sure.
I bet Mr. Matthews does.
Mr. Matthews is a self-confessed bit of a nerd, and Mr. Matthews thoroughly knows what Warhammer is. I'll educate.
Let's not go through it now.
No, I'll educate Mrs. Gandon and
Mr.
Mr. Richards another time. I don't actually, but maybe I should head along and yeah.
Sorry, I'm not dominating, but we had another question through yesterday that I meant to mention earlier, around the offer of languages and the languages that students would take in year 7. So I think that's a good one to pick up on. Now we're sort of running out of time slightly. So just so that you know, the language offer changed this year, and it's something that I've been pushing for the last couple of years, and it's happened. So we used to just offer French when students came in year 7, and I've really pushed the notion of offering 2 languages to students. So when students start in year 7, they do French and Spanish, so that they are able to study both languages, and then they do an assessment in the summer term towards the end of year 7, and that will determine those students who will go on to just study one language, or those students who want to continue and study 2 languages. So I think the language offer at Cleeve School is superb. I mentioned some of those clubs so that they can do the Italian and the German club, but we also offer Mandarin. So when students are able to take 2 languages, they get to choose whether they want to do French and Spanish or French and Mandarin. And this year we've also had, for the top 10% of the year group, they've been able to take part in the Mandarin Excellence Programme, which is just superb. And what we're going to be doing in the summer term of this year is some of our Chinese teachers from our school are going to be delivering lessons in the summer term to primary school year 6 students, so that they can start to see if they've got an interest in that language and whether they might be interested in being part of the Mandarin Excellence Programme. So really, really exciting stuff for our school. And also then when you go into Key Stage 4, you have the opportunity of studying Latin. And we work with the Cheltenham Ladies College to offer that course, but that's something else that students can take in Key Stage 4. So languages, we really, really believe in the power of languages at Cleeve School, and it's an incredibly successful department. A favourite part of mine when we're doing school tours is taking parents and students into language lessons and just seeing how successful those lessons are and how much the students enjoy learning about a language, but also learning about a different culture. So really, really powerful. I hope that answered the question that we received yesterday.
There's a language you haven't mentioned either we offer.
Oh!
Arabic.
I didn't know.
You didn't know? We do offer in a sort of extracurricular way.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's that's via some friends over the other side of Cheltenham, which is very useful. The other thing we haven't mentioned is we're a cyber first gold school. Now, I think there's only about 3 of us nationally. This is a project that's been overseen, it's been running, I think, for the last few years now by the National Cyber Security Centre. And we're very proud. Gold, as you can imagine, is the kind of senior elite position, if you like. And that brings all sorts of positives, funding into the school, work that we can then do with the primary school, local primary schools as well, but also developing our own students in terms of their computing, their coding. And again, that links quite nicely to the world of technology as well. So as Mrs. Gann rightly says, you know, we come down fairly clearly about phones because we think phones aren't necessarily a good thing at the moment in terms of day-to-dayness in schools. But it doesn't mean that we're not a technology-rich school that really embraces technology, and we're fully aware that young people will need to use technology, are using technology, and will need to use technology going forward in the future as well. So we're very much a technology-rich school, and we're very keen to keep developing that as well. And that gold status, I think, very much mirrors that ambition and view of ourselves as well. How are we doing for time? So we've got about 10 minutes left. I can see a few more.
We've had a really good question. Kind of do provide help to people with dyslexia, but I think it's really important that we talk about our offer for our students with special educational needs. I think that's really important. The support that we offer for students with special educational needs coming into Cleves starts before they start with us. So over the last few years, we've really developed our transition process. So there's a lot of work. Obviously, we talk to all students who are joining us from primary schools, but there's an extra level of work that goes into those students who do need a little bit of extra support. And so they'll receive a visit from one of our SEN team. They'll talk to your child's teachers. They'll talk to you to try and understand what that student's particular needs, what's worked for them so far. Actually, what's the ongoing picture? Is there work that still needs to be done to identify needs or understand needs? They'll then take away a whole suite of ideas about how best to support your child. And that's delivered to teachers across a system whereby every teacher should have, before they even meet your child, an understanding of what their particular needs might be, some suggestions of particular strategies that have worked with that child in the past, and the things that they need to be working on so that they can make really good progress. And that's an ongoing process, so those are regularly reviewed both with the student and with parents as well. We do a lot of work just in terms of our teaching and learning model has been set up with students who perhaps struggle with certain types of learning in mind. So everything that we do around building working memory, about recall, it has SEN students in mind, because one of the things that's common across lots of different needs for students is that ability to transfer learning from that short-term memory into that long-term memory. So a lot of what we do is focused on that to help bridge that divide somewhat. We also have some specific extraction support. So for literacy and numeracy, that comes in 6-week blocks. So for the students who need perhaps one-to-one or small group support, and our students who are kind of struggling the very most, they can have a slightly differentiated timetable. So that will include some extra support in English and maths, so that they can really get that core set of skills together to enable them to succeed later on.
I think it's also important to say that as a reading school, because as a school we place such a huge emphasis on the transformational impact of reading, that forms a large part of our offer at Cleve, and I think that truly impacts students of all abilities, students with a special educational need, and most able students. Reading is just so powerful. So within all tutor groups, 4 times a week, 3 times a week, they do what's called the Cleve Canon. So we've selected challenging novels, novels of a cultural significance. They've been really, really carefully chosen to broaden students' vocabulary, to broaden students' knowledge of the world around them. So those books are read to them. So the whole tutor group is studying the same book. The tutor will read to the students, and the students track that reading using a ruler, so they're looking at the words, they're really visualising those words, and any unfamiliar vocabulary the tutor defines to the students, so they're just being exposed to a full range of vocabulary every single day during tutor time, and that's having a really, really powerful impact on students and their progress. But also within our English curriculum, we follow the accelerated reading programme, so every single student, when they start with us in Year 7, we assess their reading age, so they do what's called a STAR reading test. And that gives us their very specific reading age, and that's just shared with them and with you as parents. It's not promoted to the class, but it's something that we track then. We track throughout their time at Cleve, really, certainly until the end of Key Stage 3. We're looking at their reading age, and all that matters is that their reading age is increasing. And so they read, we ask students to read for 20 minutes every day at home. They do fun quizzes, they get rewards for the reading that they're doing, but we continue to assess their reading age probably 3 times a year, so that we're just watching that and making sure that their reading age is growing with them. So it's something that we place, as I say, a great emphasis on at Cleve School, and I think it's having a huge impact on students' progress. Mr. Matthews, are there any other questions come through?
I've got a question to ask you both.
Oh.
Are there any more questions coming through? We must make sure we're answering the questions that are coming through.
I think we've covered all the ones in the chat, yeah.
I quite like challenging ourselves, really. So, I mean, by all means, ask any more questions. My question to myself, really, which sometimes comes from audiences to me, and I'm going to ask my colleagues as well, and I'll answer it myself if I can as well. 2 questions, really. I'm going to ask Mrs. Gand and 2 questions to Mr. Matthews, because hopefully you've heard lots of positives tonight, but there's also a question about, well, what can we do better and how do we get better? So I'm going to ask Mrs. Gand and then Mr. Matthews to comment on one thing what's their favourite bit about Cleve School, and we've heard some of those this evening, but really nail it down. But also, what would they say is the area that they would like to see develop even more? Who would like to go first?
Well, I think you've chosen me.
Thank you, Mrs. Gand.
What's my favourite thing about Cleve School? There must be lots of things about Cleve School I like. I think this is my 13th year, although I always say it's my 13th year, so it might be my 14th, I'm not sure. I've been here for a long time. I absolutely love Cleve School. What's my favourite thing about Cleve School? I think this year particularly, with my new role, going into the lessons that I've been going into is the superb teaching and learning that our school offers students. The passion that our teachers have for their individual subject areas is infectious. I'm an English teacher, but I find myself going into a maths lesson and just getting absolutely absorbed in the lesson. I want to stay, but then I'm going into a science lesson and again I want to stay. So I think the passion that our teachers have for their subject areas, and passing that on to students and seeing students' knowledge grow, and their enthusiasm for those subject areas, I would say this year that's been one of my favourite things, that exciting teaching and learning offer, and just seeing how much that's changed since I was at school. I think I would say that's probably my favourite thing.
And did you do the second bit?
What was the second bit?
The second bit was which area to develop even more.
Shall I think about that one this time?
Even better if.
Even better if.
Because we're a dynamic school. We always want to keep improving.
Even better if.
Shall I do my favourite way of
Yes.
thinking? You can probably tell from our expressions that this is not scripted, and Mr. Richards has genuinely just decided to throw Mrs. Gand and I a curveball. Just while Mrs. Gand's thinking, yes, we do bikeability in year 8. We've done that for a long time, and we're keeping that going. My favourite thing about Cleve School, that's really hard to pin down because I wanted to work at Cleve School for a long time before I got to work here, and now I'm exceptionally happy to be here and incredibly proud of that. I think probably my favourite thing is a really small detail, but someone pointed it out to me the other day, that at the end of our lessons at Cleve, probably 98% of students, as they leave the classroom, just leave with a little, "Thank you, sir, have a nice day." And just, there's something about that lovely culture and that brilliant way that our students have about them. And yes, there are difficult days, and yes, sometimes there are more challenging conversations, but overwhelmingly the vast majority of my interactions with students are just so incredibly positive. You ask students, "How are you doing? How's your day?" and they ask you back. They say thank you at the end of a lesson. They sometimes genuinely they'll look at you and go, "Are you all right, sir?" "Yeah, no, I'm fine, I'm just a little bit miles away." And I think that culture that our students have, that way that they have of engaging with us as staff is brilliant, and it's one of the things that makes me really happy to come to Cleve School every morning. My area to develop, the thing that I would like to develop, you ready now, Mrs. Gunn?
No, I'm not.
No, okay, well, I'll do mine first. My one that I would still like us to keep pushing forward, because we've done a lot of work on it over the last few years, but it's something that I feel very strongly about, is our outdoor learning. So I think we've made great progress. We've done visits to Longtown Outdoor Education Centre in South Wales, which is a wonderful facility. I can't speak highly enough of it, but also PGL and DFE. And what I would like to see us continue to do is keep using those resources and keep expanding them, so that we give as many students as possible that access to the outdoors. We've got Cleve Hill on our doorstep. I love the fact that we're making use of that in enrichment days, and we go up the hill with the year 7s and the year 12s, and in normal circumstances they work together. So I feel really strongly about the outdoors as a driver for changing young people and helping those, particularly who perhaps don't always engage with school as it normally is, make the most of education. So I'd really like to see us continue to push that forward.
I think with 1 minute to go, Mr. Richards probably wants to do his bit.
You haven't finished your bit, Mrs. Gann. In many ways, I think I'd echo Mr. Matthews, really. I think my favourite bit of the school has to be our students. I think we're very, very lucky indeed. We've got a lovely, broad breadth of students who come from all different backgrounds, and we're very, very proud to be a true comprehensive school. And I feel so proud. I've got the best job in the world, and I love coming to work. And I really love those moments, those bleak, rainy mornings in November or January. But there's a smile on my face, there's a smile on lots of faces as we welcome the students as they arrive in the morning. That's brilliant. My other favourite bit, can I have two? I'm going to have two. Are the staff members. And again, I'm blessed with the people either have been here for many years over time or joining us over the last few years. And one of the great motivators I have with this job is how I help to, with others, develop people and their careers throughout the school. I know if I can surround myself by amazing people, then this school really will become one of the very best schools in the country, and that's the ambition. And I'm very lucky that in my senior team, I've got at least 3 or 4, even 5 future wonderful head teachers around me, and that's something really special, 2 of whom are in this room this evening. One area to develop, there's always things we can do better. We're certainly not the finished article, and in many ways that's the excitement about the job. I would certainly want more students to be involved with an extracurricular club or activity. As we've answered, I think that they come in very excited about that in year 7, which is wonderful, but how do we keep that going as they move through the school? I think that's something that resonates with me, because I feel that adds so much variety and breadth to their own education as they grow up through the school as well. And linked to that is I desperately want an AstroTurf. So it's something I've been after for the last 5 years. So we will get an AstroTurf come whatever, and hopefully that'll be online within the next 2 to 3 years. Hopefully, but I need someone with lots of money to help us first. And the focus of the Astro will be not rugby or football, because there are other opportunities for that around, but will be hockey, because I think the area, not just the school, but the community also needs an AstroTurf that's focused on hockey playing as well.
And then a swimming pool. That would be
swimming
nice.
pool would be lovely
That'd be nice.
as well. Yes.
I think for me, an area, as I've been thinking about it, is in terms of that transition work that we're doing, and I would say it's superb, and it's doing incredibly well, but I would say there's still a number of students who still might say to me, oh, I've never been to Cleve, or I don't know that much about Cleve, and I suppose that's for me, knowing my job isn't quite done, that actually we're getting into the primary schools, but maybe we're not getting into enough primary schools or often enough, and obviously that's been a bit more challenging this year. But in years to come, the transition for me will continue to grow, and I think our outreach into primary schools I want to grow as well, because at Cleve we've got so much to offer. And there's so many staff who are incredibly passionate, as I said, about their subject areas. So getting some of our staff into primary schools more often, not just me, I think that's something that I think as a school we can continue to develop.
Great answer. Thank you both. Thank you very much indeed. I think we've come to the end of our, it sounds like broadcast now, it sounds like the BBC or something. I tell you what, I've really enjoyed this, and I'm sure my colleagues have as well. Thank you so much for the questions. I hope you can feel the passion, the joy we have about our job and the school as well. Please, if there's any more questions over the next 7 days or so as we run into half term, please don't hesitate to email those through. You can have a phone call, you can pop in if we can arrange a visit as well. We really want you to feel reassured about coming to Cleve School. It's a lovely, lovely place to be. We thoroughly enjoy our jobs and our roles and things, and we'd be delighted if you want to join us as well, and your Year 6 children want to join us as well. Many thanks indeed.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.